Welcome to Spotlight Unborn. I'm Linda Zern, your host, and the spotlight today is on the Common Core standards. And I have with me as my guests Agatha Bodwell.
Hi, Linda.
And Marianne Aliagro.
Hi, Linda.
And both of you are from the Liberty Chalkboard. So maybe we can just, or you can just say a little bit about yourselves. And I'm also a member of the Liberty Chalkboard, and how we sort of got together and what kinds of issues that we've been working on and how we got into this.
Yeah.
Agatha, do you want to start?
Sure. We started out a group of people that actually love American history. We were a little concerned about the education that our kids are getting, so we started meeting around Marianne's kitchen table and talking about how we can, provide a little extra emphasis on American history. So we started out actually by doing these newsletters that we were giving to libraries and various other organizations. This one, I think, is about Washington, George Washington. And what happened was we were very focused on this. We wanted to coordinate a camp over the summer teaching American history. And I found out that my daughter's school was going to be adopting the Common Core standards. And so I started looking into it, and I brought my research to my friends at the Liberty Chalkboard, and we all started doing more research, and it quickly became our main mission to find out more and to warn other parents about it.
Absolutely, I'll go along with that. A wonderful explanation of that.
And I know you've put a lot of information on the Liberty Chalkboard website, so people can just go there. If we don't cover everything today, they can go to libertychalkboard.org and get all of the sites and the websites and
Yes.
and the newsletters and everything.
The newsletters are downloadable as PDFs, and we also have a page called the School Feed, which is very up-to-date on first-hand articles of what is going on concerning Common Core in Massachusetts schools and also around the country, so that we have a great example of how this is manifesting itself. We also have resource materials that that people can download to use to help educate other people about Common Core.
And why don't we just talk a little bit about what Common Core is and how it came to be?
Okay, I'll do that. I'll start with a little bit of history. It seems that for quite some time, and the federal government has been interested in our public school education. And way back when, perhaps before most of you were born, people in the audience, there actually were scripture that was being used in our public schools. And if you just grab me the New England Primer real quick. Our own state-mandated New England Primer actually is quite full of it. And we had morality in our schools. And what happened was, in 1963, there was a Supreme Court decision where the federal government, well, the Supreme Court ordered that all states remove any reference to scripture in their schools and in their curriculum. There were at least 11 states that were surpassed by the force of the federal government and forced to do this. Massachusetts was one of them, actually, in 1963. What happened was after that, there were always consequences, and SAT scores began to plummet. I guess discipline went down, the curriculum changed quite a bit, and they started teaching other things to the children, like sex education, for example. And then eventually, over the years, what has happened when that happened, the federal government decided they needed to come in and correct that. And so they started the Federal Department of Education, which Agatha wants to mention, I think, something about that to us in a moment.
Yep.
About that. Okay, she'll mention that in just a moment or two. That was in 1977, and it led to more control over our local schools. And with the implementation of what's called outcome-based education and high-stakes testing, it was no longer what we taught the children, it was would they achieve a specific outcome that the educators were looking for. And so that manifested itself in tests like our MCAS. And what happened in the classrooms were they started teaching to the test. Now, I mention all that, it sounds long and drawn, but it is actually the predecessors to the Common Core, because that's pretty much that program, but now directly influenced and run by the Federal Department of Education through agencies that we'll discuss, based 100% on this high-stakes testing that the teachers will be forced to teach the children to.
And Congress, as far as I know, never voted on this.
No.
And
No,
you,
it was basically a bribe to the states using the Race to the Top application. And so states that signed the application that they would start implementing a Common Core standards rated higher on the application, and they were all competing for Race to the Top funds. This was back in 2010 when the economy was, was in the tank, and every state was desperate for money. So they used stimulus money actually to bribe the states into accepting the Common Core standards, and therefore 45 states accepted it. The standards weren't even done yet. They were still, I believe, in a first rough draft. And that's what happened. So nobody voted for it. It was given to the governors, and I believe it was a decision of the governors and the education departments in every state. No state legislature voted on this whatsoever.
and it does say that they were created by the Governors Association, but that wasn't really the governors.
Right.
Right.
That is the National Governors Association and the Council of Chief State School Officers are trade associations. They're based in D.C., they live in D.C., they are not people from your state. Maybe once they've lived in your state. And also what came from the National Governors Association was they started an organization called Achieve, which is really the organization that was charged with creating these standards, technically creating them, and that was funded also by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. And as you'll see when you go through this, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation has funded this venture from top to bottom because they have much to gain. They have much to gain from it.
And other companies do as well.
Yes, other big companies are involved as well. That is correct.
And I think, Agatha, how much money did Massachusetts get?
Well, let's see, $4.3 billion of stimulus money was used to bribe these states into accepting Common Core standards. Massachusetts, in its first round of the Race to the Top application, actually did not check the box that said we will accept the Common Core standards, because Massachusetts, as most of us know, already has the best education in the nation. We were number one on all scores. So Massachusetts did not check the box. We came in 12 out of 13 out of all the states that applied. So therefore, in the second round of the application process, Massachusetts did check the box that they would implement Common Core standards. And we immediately shot to number one, and we received $250 million, which is interesting because most estimates say that it's going to cost a heck of a lot more to actually implement those standards in Massachusetts. The Pioneer Institute estimates that across the country it's going to cost $16 billion to implement Common Core. So the $4 billion that they offered was really chump change. It's really another federal unfunded mandate.
And like you said before, the standards weren't even created yet. Some of them are created now that you can get them on the web, the website or the internet. But
And
some
at the
aren't
time-
finished yet.
Right, at the time, right now it's just math and ELA standards. At the time, a lot of people from Massachusetts were pushing back saying, hey, we've already got the best standards. We don't need these standards. And some folks were saying, well, we're going to base these new Common Core standards on the Massachusetts standards. However, that just didn't happen. It didn't happen because one of the creators of our old standards was on the validation committee for the new standards, and it's completely foreign. It resembles nothing of what Massachusetts taught.
And Marianne referred to a statement that you have about the Constitution.
Yeah,
or the
well, it's
Department of
completely
Education.
unconstitutional. It breaks 3 federal laws. I'll tell you which laws it breaks. It breaks the General Education Provisions Act, Public Law 103-33, Section 432. It breaks the Department of Education Organization Act and the Elementary and Secondary Education Act of 1965. The 1979 law that established the Education Department forbids it from exercising any direction, supervision, or control over the curriculum or program of instruction of any school or school system. The ESA, as amended, goes further. It says no funds provided to the Education Department may be used to endorse, approve, or sanction any curriculum designed to be used in kindergarten through 12th grade. And it's just amazing because Arnie Duncan now goes around talking about Common Core. So when they say these are state standards, they're obviously not. They're federal standards. They were used with federal money. We're using federal money to bribe states. They're threatening states that don't want to implement Common Core by withholding Title I funds. They are using the, what's the thing that President Bush did?
No Child Left Behind.
No Child Left Behind Act waivers as bribes. They're offering waivers to people that say they will implement Common Core. In fact, Jimmy Carter, Secretary of Health, Education, and Welfare, Joseph Califano, opposed the creation of this new cabinet position, the Secretary of the U.S. Department of Education. He warned in its most extreme form, national control of curriculum is a form of national control of ideas. And this is where we're headed with this.
And that's what it seems
Yes.
to be doing.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Marianne, you're a biologist
Yes.
down at MBL.
I am.
So when you look at these kinds of things, you look at it from a different perspective.
Oh, I do. I've got to give you an example of that. Let's take a look at our national next generation science standards, which supposedly, well, they're supposedly not part of the core yet, although they are. They started training biology teachers. I know personally because I spoke to several of them this summer. They had to stop. Apparently, I've spoken to them since, and they had to stop trying to implement them. And I wonder why. So let me just give you a slight example of one of their thoughts. The cross-cutting concepts. First of all, that doesn't even, I don't even know what that means in science. But anyway, the cross-cutting concepts of patterns, cause and effect, symptoms, systems and models, interdependence of science, engineering, and technology, and influence of engineering, technology, and science on society and the natural world are called out as organizing concepts for these disciplinary core ideas. That's for kindergarten. That's one of our science standards in the premise to the kindergarten standards. Now, I ask you, can you even understand a word of that?
I can't.
Right. It is totally incomprehensible. I've been a scientist for 30 years. It is totally incomprehensible. And I can imagine that's why teachers are having trouble with this. And students will never be able to get it. The other problem with this type of thing is they don't cover physics, they don't cover chemistry. Children are going to be so debilitated in mathematics, not being able to reach algebra, and they won't be able to do these things. They won't.
Now, we set up a forum down in Falmouth about a year ago.
Yes.
And we had, I wasn't there, but you had Sandra Stotsky.
Yes, she's wonderful.
And she was speaking, and do you want to talk a little bit about what she said and who she was, and what she said about the Common Core standards?
Sure. Well, she was on the validation committee, as Agatha said. She was also the head of, in Massachusetts.
She was one of the main architects of the ELA standards
Right, of
in
our original.
Massachusetts, the standards that had plummeted Massachusetts to the top of the nation.
Exactly. So she's well qualified to discuss these things. And she herself said that the English language arts standards were not comprehensible. They would be very bad for the children. They remove most of their literature, and they're replaced with informational texts out of context. And that makes it extremely difficult. So even if they give the child a piece of the, say, the Gettysburg Address, they don't say what it is. They don't explain it historically, and then they ask them to comprehend or understand 3 sentences in it. It just absolutely makes no sense. And if you go look at them yourself, you'll become frustrated quite quickly.
And she also said that 30% of the English curriculum was going to be literature. That's down quite a lot
Yes.
from what it used to
Tremendously.
be. So it'd be only 30%. And she thought that meant that kids could not read a whole book, that they would be reading these condensed versions of literature
Yes.
as well.
And actually, I looked online at their standards, and it's not even condensed. They would be reading a couple of paragraphs from a book,
Wow.
or maybe a chapter of a book, again, with no context. So the kids are going to have no ability to use their imaginations, no ability to grow their creativity by reading literature. I mean, literature is essential. It's essential.
So Sandra actually refused to sign off on the standards, along with the only mathematician on the validation committee, James Milgram. He said that the standards are 2 years behind international expectations by the 8th grade and fall further behind in grades 8 to 12. The math standards downgrade the years when algebra and geometry are to be taught. And in quotes, he said, it's almost a joke to think students would be ready for math at a university. And this brings me to something that was caught on camera. One of the architects of the math standards actually said out loud, well, when we say this prepares kids for careers and college, we mean 2-year community colleges. We never meant 4-year colleges. So wait till parents hear this.
And really, and fully understand
that
it.
in Massachusetts, we're preparing all of our kids to go to a community college. I mean, this is really a downgrade of our former standards.
I was doing some research online too about the implementation of the Common Core standards, and they even had charts there on how to get around going through the curriculum directors
Yes.
to implement some of these things.
And they have lovely little, everything is in, they're not afraid to say what they mean, I suppose, or at least say what they want to do. Yes, establish routines to monitor performance and solve problems, and this is how to get around local communities and make sure that they will fall for this and put their children through this program.
And people can get this right online. I
Yes.
downloaded it myself and ran off a few pages that
Thanks to Achieve, this is from Achieve itself, and U.S. Education Delivery Institute. Sounds like a new place.
Yeah.
And I think I got mine from the was it PPC or the Partnership for whatever the letters are?
Park?
Park, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, which is the
PARCC.
testing agency. Yes, I can tell you what that is. It's on my cheat sheet. The Partnership for Assessments of Readiness for College Careers.
Yes.
That's one of the high-stakes testing agencies.
So you could go to that website too, and they have the same kind of material there.
Yeah. And you remember, I know a lot of teachers that had said they hated testing to the MCAS exams. And when they find out that Park has been called MCAS on steroids,
It's
I mean, it's
horrible.
going to be longer, more expensive, harder to teach to. I mean, they're going to be spending all their days, all their time basically teaching to this Park test. So it's going to completely take all the creativity out of the classroom. Even the National Governors Association owns the copyright on these standards. So I hear a lot of teachers saying, oh, we're going to teach what we want, and we're going to raise the standards. We don't have to teach to these standards. According to the National Governors Association, they will graciously allow teachers to fill in 15% of whatever they want in the classroom. But technically, once you've signed on to the dotted line that you're going to be teaching Common Core standards, they will expect you to teach to those standards. And good luck